So let's talk about some other areas related to fat, but not fat specific, that are a concern for some athletes. So one is ketogenic diet. Keto by definition means low carbohydrate, right? But in order to do that, in order to stay in balance, you have to increase other macronutrients. Protein you can increase to an extent, but fat's going to be the thing that is really increased the most. So when somebody's on a keto diet, there's going to be a reduction in body fat, which is great. This has been shown pretty clearly. So for those that are going to be more physique sports, very power sport oriented sports that don't need to take in a lot of carbohydrate, this is not going to be quite as impactful, right, for those athletes in terms of negative side effects, right? And there is a good deal of evidence to suggest that there's a reduction in body fat with this type of eating. So in those cases, maybe not so bad. But one other thing you have to consider is this brain fog. If anyone's ever gone low carbohydrate before, remember your brain uses glucose almost exclusively for functioning. You feel tired, you feel fuzzy, and this period of adaptation can last up to 3.5 weeks. Now, most people are not equipped to feel bad for 3.5 weeks. Most people, if they feel bad after about 3 days, give up, right? And I've done research here looking at the keto diet with females and resistance training, and we had a hell of a time getting people through 2 weeks of this, right? So it's a difficult deal. I think most people will give up on this, and this is not going to be sustainable for most people, right? So that's the one thing about this, which is why I don't get too stressed about it as long as someone's not in season, because it's probably not going to last, right? It's very, very difficult, and you got to really hang in there to reap the benefits. And most people either don't know how long it really takes, or they're not willing to feel that bad for that long. Sport performance may be compromised. This is very much emerging. We know kind of the physiological body comp benefits to it, but how does it impact performance? That's really, if you decrease your body fat but your performance sucks, it doesn't really matter, right? So this is where we're kind of unsure. How is it affecting the sport performance itself? I won't go over this study, but I really recommend, if this is of interest to you, look it up. But this is part 1. It was called the Supernova study. Part 2 actually was just released, and they were looking at race walkers and looked to see kind of what happened to their performance. And it's very clear, at least from this lab doing these 2 big studies, that endurance performance does indeed suffer for those that are on a keto diet, which really, it makes sense because carbohydrates dictate intensity. And if what you need is to rely on rely on glycogen using aerobic pathways, and also, needing that carbohydrate to maintain a higher intensity for a longer period of time, it makes complete sense that it's not working out so well. So that's really what this graph is showing you here, that those that are on this, fat, when they become even fat adapted, the level of carbohydrate oxidation is lower, meaning they're relying more on fat. You're relying on fat to fuel your ATP, you're slowing down, right? So the bigger consideration, which I've already covered, is it sustainable? My theory, if I had to generalize to most people, I'd say no, it isn't. Because it takes so long to adapt, and you've got to be willing to feel terrible during that time. So if you're interested in this, do not start this in season. Do it in the off season sometime, see how it goes. I really don't recommend it. I guess I do discourage it, especially for endurance athletes, but I don't actively discourage it if you're more power-based and not heavily reliant on carbohydrate to begin with. But just know it's a tough road.